Hannah, aka Fruity Frog Creations, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience as a vendor in the Artist Alley at Toronto Comic Con. This was my very first time ever going to a Comic Con, so I had a lot of questions going in and I learned so much. I thought that it would be a great opportunity for me to share my experience with all of you. Toronto Comic Con is similar to Fan Expo, but it's a little bit smaller and it runs during March break. This year it was March 17th through 19th, 2023, and it was a great opportunity for people to come by, especially students, while they were off from school. I initially applied through a form on their website, and you pay up front, and essentially if they decline you, they'll return your payment. But you just kind of have to wait and see to hear back if you actually did get approved. I applied and submitted the form December 2nd of 2022, and I heard back that I was approved to attend the event on January 11th. I received my booth number and location on the map exactly 1 month before the show, and was able to see all of the other vendors around me and follow them on socials and kind of get familiar with the setup in that way. More of the information I needed, like forms and details and guidelines, came on the website at around that time. So if you're waiting to hear back about other events, I would ask other vendors that you know have applied and see if they've heard back. And I would also check the website to see how far along they are in the process, because they post most of their forms and information publicly. So it's easy to access through the website and kind of check where they are in the process. One of the things that I was most excited to do was plan out my table and my display. I've had a display that's kind of evolved and changed over time for different markets, but I really wanted something that looked aesthetically pleasing and would be a little bit more complicated to set up, because I would be leaving it there for a couple of days, but that would look really good and kind of keep it on the same level as everyone else there. I'm really fortunate that I have a lot of room in my house to set up a table, so I actually set up my display and practiced it beforehand, and I was able to leave it up for an extended period of time and add the different things that I collected to kind of make it look better over time. If you have the space, I highly recommend practicing your table setup beforehand, especially if you're new to vending and to being at a con. It's really helpful to be able to measure height and things like space that you might need behind the table. If you have bags or any kind of iPad or any kind of items that you need to store just for yourself, that's pretty important to think about, because sometimes you don't have a lot of space and you don't want to be digging through stuff too much. So if you're able to find a little bit of space at the back of your table behind your display, it's really helpful. If you don't really have room to set up a table, that's okay, but I think it would be helpful to maybe draw it out or have some other way of planning and organizing the items that you'll be bringing to put on your display, just because you want to make sure that it looks as good as it possibly can. And it was kind of interesting for me, because I've never been to a con. I thought because I had elevated my display appearance a little bit more than I have for other markets, I thought it would be, standing out. I was worried that my display was even a little bit too big, but that was definitely not the case. Everyone else at the con has a really elaborate and beautiful display that tends to be quite tall, especially people with prints. It's actually really important for you to have height and visual appeal with your booth, otherwise you might get kind of lost if you're a smaller table. If it makes sense to you, I really do recommend investing a little bit extra money to put into a visually appealing display, because you'll have it and you can use it at smaller markets as well and at future cons. So it's one of those things that's an initial investment that can be really, really worth it to appeal to your customers and really make you feel good about your display. So as for my table setup, I used wood shelving for my regular sized items that I had already had made. I used a keychain rack that was just a jewelry rack from Michaels. I also had this standard wire connecting shelving that most people use at cons and other markets, which I find really helpful because it's so portable. And with the extra time at something like Comic Con, you're able to set it up and really build it. Whereas at other markets, it can be limited by how much time you have. I also purchased a new green tablecloth that matches my business colors, some acrylic frames to put information, QR code, and other things in. For Toronto Comic Con, I decided to order a banner. This is something that I've been wanting for a long time, and I decided this was the perfect opportunity to just go for it. So I purchased a vinyl banner from PrintFast. PrintFast is a local Canadian company. This is not sponsored, but it's seems to be family owned and it's out in Scarborough, so I really recommend if you're in the area to check them out. They're always really nice, and that's where I get my business cards and where I got my new vinyl banner from. I also decided to make price tag signs that made my prices more clear, and I made that using my Cricut. I cut out paper and had the Cricut draw with pen so that it was a lot more even, and then just filled it in. A little bit complicated for a price tag, but I think they turned out really nice, and it's something that I'm able to reuse. So I think it's helpful to have your prices out and really clear to customers. Things can be really overwhelming and overstimulating for everyone attending the con. So I find it really helpful when I'm a customer and just in general to have your prices clearly out if you can. So the way Toronto Comic Con was set up was that Artist Alley vendors were able to come in on Thursday night as well as Friday morning to set up their tables. We were each given a 6-foot table unless you paid for kind of a larger setup, but I think 6 foot's pretty standard as for markets and cons. So although the table setup was on Thursday night, I was actually able to go really early to pick up the exhibitor passes. And I headed in Thursday morning to kind of check out the space and get an idea of what the setup would be like, where my table was, and of course to pick up the passes. I'm the type of person that likes to know all of the information ahead of time and be super prepared, so this was really helpful to me. And I really recommend it if you're feeling nervous or if you just want more information about the setup. If there's an opportunity to go early and it's not a problem for you, then it would be good for you to see the space and get an idea. That way it's not busy at all, you're not as stressed, and you're able to get a lay of the land without having to worry about rushing through setup or rushing to get your product out. I found it really helpful, and it was pretty weird to see the whole place empty and just the tables there. It was such a huge space and I was like shocked by how big it was. But after that initial experience, I felt so much more comfortable and prepared Thursday night when I went to set up my table. Because you're able to set up on either Thursday night or Friday morning, it's up to you, whatever works best. I'm a Toronto local, so it was easy for me to keep going back and forth and easy for me to set up on the Thursday night. That way I didn't have to rush. But some people have much smaller setups or they can't travel in that extra day. So they found time on Friday morning to just set up their full table and have it ready by 10 a.m. on Friday. So because I'm a local, I always use the transit and I actually don't drive. So what I ended up doing was packing everything up every morning and bringing new inventory each morning. So I came in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning with a suitcase full of items, and it was really easy. The transit connects all inside of buildings to the convention center, so it was a really simple process. And if you can avoid it, I would recommend bringing a car, but it was something that I was able to do. So if you're in a pinch and you need to bring more stock and you're a local, it's pretty easy to bring it on transit and set it up before each day of the show. So just a tip for this con in particular, if you know that you'll be parking every day, I highly recommend getting the parking pass ahead of time. It was quite a bit of savings. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I didn't end up getting it for the Thursday, which meant I had to pay $20 for parking just for an hour. So I really recommend, if you can, just to buy all of the days that you're going to be there ahead of time on the pass. That way you know that you'll be able to get a spot and it's all paid for and done. The parking for the Metro Toronto Convention Centre is really easy to find, and it's nice and close to where the con was set up. So you're able to just bring everything in by hand if you have smaller items. And that's what the majority of Artist Alley people do, because they aren't rigging some huge commercial display. As for takedown, most people were really quick to take down. A lot of people just threw some sort of cover or tarp over their table. At night, there was pretty much no one there. The building cleared out pretty quickly. So of course, with no one there, hopefully nothing will happen, but there's also no one there, so there's a possibility that if someone comes in with bad intentions, then there's no one to kind of see and watch over your stuff. I was a little bit nervous about that, so what I ended up doing was purchasing bins that were able to be locked. Because I was taking the transit so much, I had to store some of my items, and just to make them more secure, I locked the bins and locked them to the table so no one was able to get in. But everyone has a different strategy for how they want to take down their table at the end of the day. There's no real rules about doing it in a certain way. It's more about you being responsible for the security of your own items. So one of the biggest things that I learned at Toronto Comic Con was about merchandise and sales. I prepared a ton of merchandise ahead of time. I was crocheting away from the end of December all the way up to the event in mid-March. Prior to the event, people were very kind in saying my stuff would be very popular and it would all sell out immediately, which of course is very kind to say, but not necessarily realistic. And once I got there, I was able to understand more clearly how sales would go. So I actually ended up preparing quite a bit more than I needed, especially of certain items. Some items sold right away and were very popular, whereas other items I didn't sell any the entire con. So actually, unfortunately, I think my expectations were a bit too high going into the event. Now that I've been to Comic-Con, I understand way more of how it works. So before I had been there, I thought it would kind of be like, oh, everyone's looking at your items and it's all a big rush. You can barely keep up with people. Just because the attendance I thought would be so high and the amount of purchases would be so high that you'd be rushing to get the card reader ready and put everything through on the system and all of that. But that wasn't really the case. It was just a steady stream of attendees throughout the entire event. I found that every 5-10 minutes, every half an hour, you'd get a sale, and it would just keep going like that. There was never one big rush where 20 people were waiting in line to get my items, and that wasn't the case for anyone else either. So the event itself was very busy and there were huge crowds throughout. Especially when I was walking around, I felt how crowded it was. But if you're worried about kind of being overwhelmed by crowds and the stress of it all, I actually found it wasn't too bad for me personally because of the barrier of being at the table. So walking around, it felt like a little bit chaotic, but once I got back to the table, because of the big display, I was able to like relax behind the table, and I didn't realize how relaxing it would be. I kind of felt like I could just sit there and watch people walk by with all of their cool cosplays and all of the interactions, but it wasn't as chaotic as I thought it would be. My best days for sales were actually Friday and Sunday. I think in part this was because my primary audience is youth. So on Friday, a lot of kids were off school because it was March break and were coming through with their friends or with their parents. And then on Sunday, it's again kind of a more family-centric day where our parents are coming in and purchasing stuff for their kids. But I think in general, other vendors found that Friday and Sunday were the best days. I think that more people tend to shop on those days, whereas Saturday, a lot of people go for the meet and greets, the signings, photo ops, that kind of stuff. So it's more like a influencer crowd and people who are there to show off their cosplays and meet with other people and less to shop. So the biggest thing I learned attending my first ever con, compared to the other markets that I've been to, is about the quality of Artist Alley. Because Artist Alley has so many fantastic, talented vendors selling similar items, what I found about customers is that they're making tons of purchases. They're spending a lot of money. They love the items that they're seeing. But because everything's kind of similar and high quality, people's purchases are spread out across all sorts of different vendors, which is excellent. But what tends to happen in smaller markets is if you're the only person in that category, if you're the only person selling crochet, or even the only person selling stuffies, if you're the only person selling jewelry, or maybe there's only a couple other people selling a similar type of product to you, then you really stand out. So everyone that's there who is your target audience and wants to purchase something will purchase something from you. Everyone else at a market typically wouldn't be your target audience. You wouldn't expect them to make purchases from you, and they wouldn't. The thing about Comic-Con is that everyone has similar items, so everyone attending is their target audience. But that means that the target audience is spread across all of the vendors, like I said. So just because your target audience is there in huge numbers doesn't mean all of the purchases will be going to you. And this is something that I didn't really know. It might seem obvious to other people, but my experience is mostly with markets. So because of my items not being the same as most other vendors at markets, anyone who's drawn to amigurumi, crochet will be coming to me. Whereas if it was a market just of amigurumi, of course it would be spread out over numerous vendors. That didn't really occur to me before the con, but now having been there, it makes a lot of sense. People are purchasing a lot, but it's spread out across all the Artist Alley vendors. So there were a few other things that I learned that I wanted to share with you because they might be helpful for other cons or even if you wanted to do Toronto Comic Con. One of the things that I didn't realize before attending is that you actually can share a table with someone and split the cost. So if you only need around 3 feet of space rather than a 6-foot table, and you have someone in mind that you want to share the table with, like a sibling, a friend, any other vendors that you're close with and trust, you can split the table in half and have your display on one side, their display on the other, and that way the costs are reduced. And that can actually be really helpful because you're guaranteed to have 2 people looking over your table, and hopefully you can help each other set up, take down, and all of that. I got a lot of help from other friends and family that aren't vendors, but I think if you have vendor friends that you want to share a table with, it's a great way to share the work. Another thing that you may not know is that with your Comic-Con fees, you get 2 exhibitor passes. So if you're just one person and you wanted to have someone else help you out, both of those passes will be free and you're able to have that help without paying for any additional passes. Now, if you want more people on top of that, you can pay for more passes. It's around $50 for each pass. And I ended up doing that. I had 4 extra people helping me. So I got the first 2 passes and then 3 extra ones, which was quite a lot. And I thought that I would need all that help, but honestly, having been there, because there wasn't that big rush and chaos, I thought I would have to have 2 people at the booth at any given time, but that was definitely not the case. So I know in the future, I don't have to have so many people at the booth all the time, and it's okay to only have 1 person there. And the last thing I wanted just to share about my insider knowledge and what I learned is honestly, the other vendors at the con were so incredibly kind. It's something that I honestly wasn't expecting because you never know. With people trying to make a living off of their craft. Some people can be really, really kind and supportive, and some people are more competitive, and it's just the nature of business, right? So I was worried that it would be more of a competitive environment with everyone trying to get their sales and whatnot, but people were so nice. People weren't like that at all. Everyone wanted everyone else to succeed. People helped other people's displays and supported me, made purchases from me. I made purchases from other vendors. So it was really communal, really, really nice. And it was one of my absolute favorite parts about doing the con. So if you ever have the opportunity to attend Toronto Comic Con or to attend any other con, I highly recommend it, just for the experience of being in a space with so many other vendors who are passionate about their arts, passionate about comics or anime or anything fun like that. It's just an incredible experience, and I would highly recommend it. Because there were so many other talented vendors at the Artist Alley, couldn't help myself, and I had to buy some things as well. So this is what I ended up getting. First of all, I got these 2 stickers. This is a fish waffle ice cream, and this is a little Korok playing a cello. Absolutely adorable. These are 2 other stickers I got. This one is of Ayato drinking boba, and this one is with little cute Raiden Shogun. I also got this beautiful Princess Zelda sticker sheet. I got this really beautiful print of Link and Zelda holding torches. It's inspired by Tears of the Kingdom, which is the newest Legend of Zelda game coming out really soon. I'm so excited for the game, and it was awesome to see other vendors that were excited for it too. I think this is absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to put it up. I also got this super beautiful Libra horoscope pin. It's bubble tea and this beautiful shade of purple. To all my Avatar The Last Airbender fans, you'll know who this is. This is Uncle Iroh, wise old uncle who loves to drink tea, but I got this cute little keychain. I also got this really cool wooden pin that's enemy from Genshin Impact. It's an Abyss Mage, so it's like this wizard that has electricity, and I think it's really cool that it's made out of wood and really beautiful. I'm happy to add it to my pin collection. I also got this washi tape that looks like stamps. You can rip off each individual piece so it looks like, you know, a rectangular stamp, and it's all the characters from Avatar The Last Airbender. I also got 3 prints that are Genshin Impact characters. This is Yae Miko. These are the Kamisatos and Toma. And this is Yoimiya. And even if you don't know who any of these are, you gotta say they're pretty cute and beautiful. And the last thing I got was this absolutely stunning Tainari print. This is another character from Genshin Impact, and they love the forest, they protect the forest, and just the image of them with the birds of paradise in these bright colors is so stunningly beautiful. I don't even know if the camera captures it, but I'm really glad I got this, and I cannot wait to put it up. It's just so stunning. So yeah, that's everything I kind of thought of that I wanted to share with you all. Let me know if you have any questions at all. I'd be so happy to answer them. I know for me, I was overwhelmed and unsure of a whole bunch of things going into Toronto Comic Con. So now that I have a little bit more information, I'd be super happy to help answer any of your questions. Feel free to comment them down below or message me on any of my socials. If you ended up stopping by my booth or just the con in general, thank you so much. It was really nice meeting all the attendees and all the other vendors. And if you're questioning whether you should go to Comic-Con or Fan Expo in the future, I would highly recommend. It's lots of fun, there's lots to see, lots to buy, so I would really recommend it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!